Welcome to this edition of Vax Talks. I'm Brad Satin, joined today by Dr. Sina Bavari. He is the Chief Science Officer at Helion Bio, also the former Science Director at the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Today we're talking about COVID-19 vaccines, what's on the market, what's still in development, and what makes one different from another. Dr. Bavari, what do we need to know?
Sure. Let me actually, before going there, maybe I should give you a very, very high level introduction to what are the vaccines that are actually out there. There are actually over 250 vaccines that are under some sort of a development. And over 50 vaccines are currently in phase 1, 2, 3 clinical trials. So that means they've gone into human beings. Of those vaccines, about 20 of them are actually in a phase 3 clinical trial. That means they're very advanced. So in a phase 1, you basically look to see if there is a toxicology problem with these. In a phase 2, you start looking at efficacy and immunogenicity. And in phase 3, you're really looking at signs of safety and efficacy. The vaccines that you hear about right now are from a family of vaccines that are called genetic vaccinations. Genetic vaccinations would include mRNA, messenger RNA, and DNA vaccines. So the two vaccines that are currently moving forward in this area are Moderna vaccines and Pfizer vaccine.
You know, early on the talk was we may never find a vaccine, but here we are in December and some vaccines are being rolled out. Are you surprised by this?
No, absolutely not. I'm not surprised that we actually can find the vaccines for SARS coronaviruses. The speed that actually came along, I am amazed at what we've done. But if you really think about it, vaccine development is all into decreasing the risk. Okay, so what does that mean? That means you do it stage by stage by stage. So you have to go slowly. In some cases, actually, phase 1 and 2 were done together. Phase 2 and 3 were done together. And in some cases, phase 1, 2, and 3 were done together. In many cases, the government actually subsidized the risk. So they took the risk out of doing this type of work. And now the companies were actually allowed then to quickly go from phase 1, 2, 3 to upscaling it.
There are so many types of vaccines coming out. Do we know, at least in the short term, because that's all we have to work with, which are the most successful? And if we actually had a choice, which should we get?
The current vaccines, Moderna vaccine and Pfizer vaccine, that are going in front of the committees to be evaluated for emergency use authorization, those two vaccines have shown to be safe and partially at least efficacious in short period of time, for at least a 2-month period that they've been looking at. Now, beside those, other vaccines that are coming along can actually supplement these two vaccines. So if we don't have enough of Moderna vaccine or the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines, other vaccines that are coming along shortly will be able to supplement that. So the safety of them, I am not too worried about. Now, would that immune response last for years? We are not sure about that at this point. Yeah, but they have shown to be very, very efficacious. Over 90% protection. It's impressive for these type of vaccines at this time.
But it is a good question. Will they still provide us immunity in 6 months, a year from now, 5 years from now? We just don't know.
Yeah, at this point, we're not sure, yes, and based on the data that we currently can look at, they would at least be safe and efficacious for a year. We don't know what's actually going to happen to the efficacy after 1 year. And we may have to think about this as a seasonal influenza plus SARS coronavirus vaccine together, which you can actually then do that simultaneously.
Never thought of that, but it does make sense. We're hearing that many, if not all, of these vaccines require 2 doses. What happens if we stop at 1?
It seems like, at least with the mRNA vaccine from Pfizer and possibly Moderna's, it seemed like after the first vaccination, 8, 9 days after that, you're actually protected because the placebo actually keep getting infection in it. And if you're vaccinated after the 8 days, it's actually the infection goes down substantially. So it seems like one dose might be enough to actually produce enough neutralizing antibody and arouse your immune system to a level that can detect and kill the virus. Now, the second dose is given for more of a, to be sure that you have that much antibody, more antibody than you need, and more CD8 or CD4 T cell responses that you need, the second arm of immune system that you need. Now, and not everybody becomes positive for the antibody after the first vaccination. So with the second vaccination, the positivity rate almost goes up to close to 100%.
And last question here as I kind of backtrack just a little bit. If we find out that these early vaccines do a great job, do the others in development quit or do they keep moving along?
Oh, absolutely. They need to move along regardless, because you're talking about billions of doses that we need. And if you think about it, if these vaccines are, you have to give 2 shots of it. So you immediately, whatever they're producing, you have to divide that by 2. So for example, let's say Pfizer can generate 1 billion doses. You divide that by 2, you only have 500 million. So now, then in the other case, the same thing with Moderna. Moderna is going into millions of doses, then you have to divide that by 2. So there'll have to be a complementation of other vaccine platforms that are coming along to supplement the current activities.
Well, thanks for your insight, Dr. Bavari. We really appreciate your time.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
And we thank you at home for watching this edition of Vax Talks. I'm Brad Satin.